From one user losing his $1 million fortune in a week, to another user losing his life savings and his job, we're gonna go over the dumbest WallStreetBets losses we haven't covered yet. JRock15 is an unemployed trader who likes throwing it all on the line. His first post about his portfolio was made back on August 20th. He was being secretive about his portfolio value at the time, but he was up $5,900 for the day and $9,100 for the week. Currently unemployed. Needed this W. Let's go! Instead of taking this profit and, maybe filling out some job applications, he kept on making risky options trades. He was feeling very bearish about a month later, so he threw 26.5k into 0 DTE SPY puts. There's no way to put it nicely though, cause he pretty quickly found himself down 43%, and since there wasn't much time left on the clock, it could go straight down to 0 if he didn't sell soon. He didn't sell soon, but that actually turned out to be the right move, cause SPY fell right back down, which let him walk away with a $13.5 thousand profit for the day. Resident Tumbleweed said, "Bro, you stupid? Stop buying 0 DTE. And Loud Pineapple 4294 said, "If you keep playing like that, it's just a matter of time before you lose everything."
Shut up!
JRock got back to us a month later, and maybe he should have listened to some of the warnings because he was down 70% for the day thanks to 0 DTE SPY puts. Thought I was different. Does this mean I need to get a job?
I couldn't wait for it to end. I got no wife, but you got a boyfriend.
Nice to see that he still hasn't gotten a job yet. NoEar7801 is a user who has made and lost millions of dollars trading options. His first post on WallStreetBets was made in October of 2023. He spent nearly $240,000 on out-of-the-money 0 DTE SPY calls. He was off to a pretty shiesty start though, down almost 63k. He wasn't worried though. It will go up, he said. Shockingly, SPY did indeed go up. Not by a lot, but enough for him to walk away with a $28,000 profit for the day. Huh, nothing like risking 250k for 25k. That was a pretty steep drop there too, so I'm guessing that he probably was down more than 100k at one point throughout the day. He sold at a pretty good time too, cause SPY ended up falling back down to $420 a share by the end of the day, which meant that he passed on the blessing of these contracts expiring worthless to someone else. He had 0 DTE fever now and picked up even more 0 DTE SPY calls. This time, he threw 87,000 into calls that were just at the money, with his reasoning being, it just can't go down anymore. He pretty quickly lost $8,400, but he wasn't worried since this is exactly what happened with his last trade. As long as he waited it out, SPY was bound to make at least a small recovery. He was so confident that he even averaged down and threw an additional 43k on the line. The day went on, and SPY stayed pretty stagnant, which was terrible since it was still out of the money. And that recovery he was looking for never happened, so he lost just about $130,000 that day, assuming he held. He was tired of people talking trash in the comments, so he said, you know what? Fine. He's gonna make an even bigger YOLO the next day, but now he was done being a bull. Done with calls. This is going to 0. He threw $168,000 into out-of-the-money 0 DTE SPY puts, and this turned out to be a genius move because SPY fell more than 1% that day. If he held, he would have doubled his money, making over $220,000. He actually got temporarily banned from WallStreetBets because people couldn't believe he was really making such big trades, but got unbanned when he came back with proof. He was up almost $700,000 in the past month, and he scrolled through his portfolio showing that his gains lined up perfectly with his post history. He even posted screenshots of his positions, so all things considered, it would be pretty hard to fake. He made a pretty big withdrawal, which is why it shows he's in the negative at the start, and he eventually stopped posting to WallStreetBets, but came back about 9 months later with a new screenshot of his portfolio. It seems like he switched on over to Fidelity and no longer had hundreds of thousands of dollars to trade with anymore. With $70 left in his portfolio, all he said was, "Welp, make sure to like and subscribe to never lose your life savings because doing that will definitely keep you safe." CTT is a user who is completely fine with destroying his portfolio. Disregarding his earlier posts about dumpster diving and Pokemon Go, he made his first post to WallStreetBets on December 19th of 2024. He had just over $25,000 in his Robinhood portfolio, margin turned on, and was feeling insanely bearish. He felt like Tesla was gonna fall quite a bit, so he YOLO'd pretty much his entire portfolio on out-of-the-money 1 DTE puts. He bought these 4 minutes after the market opened, and literally only 4 minutes later, he already doubled his money. He locked in his profits, posted it to Reddit, and even said that this account was funded by transferring his Roth IRA from Vanguard. He made an update only an hour and a half later, showing that he was now up 209% for the day. It seems like he reopened some Tesla puts, and later that day, he came back once again to show that he made his way all the way up to $89,000. He felt like a genius, and wondered if it was because he stumbled upon an excerpt that summarized former British Prime Minister Lloyd George's mistake. Well, wherever he got this intelligence from, it seemed like it wore off pretty quickly, because he came back only 5 days later to show that his six-figure portfolio crashed all the way back down to $1,500. Jumping ahead to January 30th of 2025, he very well still was trading, and it seemed like he was being just as risky as before. He had $840 worth of Intel calls that were going to expire the next day, and another $3,300 that expired in a week. He made a few more posts over the next few months that got deleted, but it doesn't seem like things were going all that great for him based on the titles. Jumping ahead to October 15th, he got ready to get revenge on the market. He worked his way back up to about $22,000, and he threw everything into out-of-the-money 0DTE calls on the S&P 500. And I kid you not, he was up 301% after just 40 minutes. He was waiting for the market to rise just 1/3% more, and he would finally lock in his profits. Except that didn't quite happen, and he ended up going back into the red for the day. So we went from $22K to just about $95,000, then back down to $17K, all in what looks like about an hour or so. The best part of it all is that he lets us know he's actually also unemployed. It also seems like no matter what happens, he's never gonna verify his email address. A week later, he got ready to make a trade that was somehow even crazier than the last. It was October 22nd, and he had his money invested in the company we all love, Beyond Meat. But it just got halted, so he decided to ditch that trash and pick up some 0DTE SPY options instead. He somehow made a genius move and took his $38,000 portfolio to $86,500. This is pretty much the same peak he got to the week before this, but thankfully he didn't lose it all this time. Welp, only an hour later, he not only went back down to his starting point, but even lower than that to under 19K. This was pretty much a repeat of last week, but hey, at least he has these Nokia calls that also would have expired worthless if he held them. That was his last post to WallStreetBets, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see if he's able to make a recovery. YOLOing your whole portfolio on 0DTE SPY options is never a good idea. All it takes is one optimistic tweet and you'll be heading to your nearest Wendy's to pay that month's rent. But with Imperial Trader Funding, the sponsor of today's video, you can make big trades without risking your nest egg. Imperial Trader Funding is a first-of-its-kind prop trading firm that allows you to trade stocks, options, and more with their money. You put up a small, set amount of capital, pass an evaluation, and they let you trade with up to $125,000 in real funding. This means you can trade with a lot of money, but if things go wrong, you're only out $100 instead of $100,000. It lets you put your skills to the test. And hey, if you realize you're not the greatest trader, you can stop there and you'll have saved your actual portfolio from taking a hit. They let you trade anything from 0DTE options to complex delta neutral strategies like short strangles or iron condors. You trade, they provide the capital, and you keep up to 90% of the profits depending on the account you select. On top of this, they're giving viewers of the channel a 10% discount if you sign up with the link down below in the description and use code YUMMERS, and a free 10K evaluation to the first 100 people. So be sure to check it out if you're interested. Not Good for Your Health is a user who has never been the greatest options trader. On October 13th, he made his first trade that he was going to share to the subreddit, and so far things were going great. That morning, he bought $8,500 worth of 0DTE calls on the S&P 500, and instead of crashing straight down, he made a $2,000 gain pretty quickly. These calls were still out of the money though, and of course being 0DTE, if the stock didn't have a strong rally throughout the rest of the day, all his money would be zapped away. He got back to us an hour later, and his $10.5 thousand position was now worth just about $400. He said, "Don't be greedy and take your profits when you can." With this being his first post, you would hope that he learned his lesson there and stopped making such risky trades. But a few weeks later, he threw his whole entire portfolio into short-dated, out-of-the-money Robinhood calls. The company was set to report earnings on November 5th, and Not Good for Your Health was confident that they'd knock it out the park. The day of reckoning rolled along, and he was actually right. Robinhood had a record-breaking $20 billion in deposits, revenue of $1.27 billion, and beat earnings per share estimates by nearly 20%. All this good news, but for whatever reason, the stock took a massive dump and fell 11%. His portfolio fell 76% in a day, and he was left with just under $3,000. Like business speaker 610 said, full porting into options is definitely a choice. Wooden Prize 4694 is a user who seems to love losing money on risky options. He made his first post to the subreddit back in March of 2024. But it unfortunately got removed, so we can't see the screenshot. He made another post 3 weeks later though, and things weren't going very well. He threw $14,000 into out-of-the-money CGC calls that expired a week later, and they were already down 48% by the end of the day. Worse than that, the stock needed to jump 49% in a week for him to just break even. He sold for a $12.4 thousand loss instead of waiting till expiration, but according to him, the stock popped right after he sold it. It looks like it broke past $11 per share on that day, so he would have recouped a lot of his losses, maybe even broke even if he just held a couple days longer. Besides that huge loss, he had just over $11,000 sitting in his portfolio, and he was ready to make his losses back. He made another post 3 days later, but this one got removed as well, so all we're left with is the title. God helps me with this one, guys. He stopped posting for about a month and a half, but when he finally came back, things took a turn for the worst. Down $93.7 thousand all time, he only had $284 left in his portfolio. He said, "Time to quit. Goodbye, WallStreetBets." But a few months later, he posted, "I am back, boys." He made nearly $15K that day with random SPY options. He said, "I clicked 2 buttons and boom." Pleasant Swim 9921 is a user who invests in Legos and in options, but isn't striking it rich with either one. He got ready to make his biggest trade ever and threw his whole portfolio on calls on Nike. This is already very risky business, but the most worrying part was that it was Liberation Day Eve. Most people were pretty worried that tariffs would shake things up in the market, but this wasn't even a thought in this dude's head. He went to sleep that night ready to be rich the following morning. But he didn't get rich the following morning. He instead lost it all, of course, and was down 120K all time. His real losses on the trade are presumably much higher since his portfolio was actually at an all-time high before this. So I'd guess that he really lost like 400K. He said, "I'm never gonna buy options again," and started posting to the Bogglehead subreddit asking for tips on his retirement accounts. Looking back at his portfolio history, we see that he made a post to the Lego investing subreddit asking if a specific Lego set was a good investment, and apparently it was such a trash set that people thought he was trolling. Between this and the Nike calls, you really need to get a real job, man. I Need Stop Cover Call Yol is a user who has been consistently losing money trading options. His first post was made on October 14th, and things were already off to a dangerous start. His Robinhood portfolio was down $78,000 all time, but it was a-okay because he said that he was slowly but surely recovering by full porting into bearish ETFs. I wouldn't really describe that strategy to be slow and sure, but he was determined to make it all back. 10 days later, he bought into Beyond and sold puts on it, but 3 days after that, he threw a good chunk of his portfolio into Redwire stock. He was down about 1,000 early on, but it's okay because we all know how good of an investment Redwire is. 3 days later, he gave us another update on his portfolio showing that he was down another $900 since his first post, which I guess isn't too bad. But a week after that, he said, "I just can't pick the right stock," and showed he was down $3,700 on it. And 2 days after that, we got another portfolio update, and this time he was down another 14K. He said, "I want to go back in time before I knew this subreddit." But only a day after that, he posted another screenshot of his Redwire and said, "Let's go to the moon." Only 6 hours later though, things got a lot worse, down another $3,800. Skrilly Vanilli is a user who isn't scared to see her portfolio go out in flames. Skrilly's journey started off pretty profitable, with her first major trade being made on September 8th. She bought $11.5 thousand worth of QBTS. These calls were just at the money, but did have about a month till they expired. Skrilly actually picked a big winner, cause the stock jumped 23% in just a week. She quickly sold for a $26,000 profit, which was a 225% gain on her original investment. The only thing is that she missed out on an insane rally over the next few weeks after that. You should never be mad at locking in profits, but if she held, her $11,000 investment would have grown to $172K. Skrilly said that she realizes she shouldn't be too greedy in retrospect, but she was too excited to pass up on that $26,000 profit. Even though she missed out on an additional $134K, she still made an impressive gain, and a couple weeks later, she was ready to make another crazy trade. On October 8th, she was feeling very bullish on Applied Digital and bought $2,200 worth of 2 DTE at the money calls. She wanted to buy even more, but only 14 of the 30 contracts she wanted got filled. She said she was mad the entire order didn't get filled, so she bought way more than she wanted the next day. She loaded up on an additional $6,800 worth of calls and was now in for a total of $9,000. There was only a day left till expiration, but somehow she bought at the most perfect time. The following day, the company had a massive 150 megawatt AI data center expansion, and the stock flew up 16%. Her $9,000 investment grew to $54,000 in 2 days. I applied some amazing timing. She wouldn't be laughing for too long though, cause this is the screenshot she posted a month later. She pretty much lost it all and wondered if she was the only one having a month like this. Greedy is as greedy does, she says, and she was up over $300,000 this year, but apparently just gave it all back to the market. Her biggest losers were on a Dutch Bros earnings play, a United Health earnings play, NVO waiting for a bounce, and CoreWeave. All she has left in her portfolio is about 30K in CNC calls and some Bros calls. General Nation is a user who got ravaged by Beyond. His journey started back on August 28th when he let us know that he just bought his first ever options. He didn't get much, but he picked up about $500 worth of Neo and SoFi calls and had a portfolio worth just under 21K. 2 weeks after that, he asked how screwed he was with a $1,000 loss on Open so far, but that thankfully rebounded a couple days later. A few weeks after that, he posted another screenshot, this time of his $3,200 gain on AMD calls, and at this point, he was getting pretty cocky. Must be doing something right. Only been doing options for a month. Words like that usually come back to haunt people, but for the time being, he was up 129% year to date, and only 5 days after that, he said Energy Fuels is making my day. With a nearly $12,000 gain, the house of cards was still standing pretty strong, until his next post rolled along. His $37,000 portfolio was now worth under $17,000. He had quite a bit in Energy Fuels calls, Intel calls, and SoFi calls, and none of them were in the green. We can even see a sneak peek of some of his crypto holdings, and that's not looking very promising either. Damn bro, I have Energy Fuels too. We are gonna get bent over. I think we already are bent over. He followed up the next day with a $1,000 profit with SPY calls, but he was gonna need to try a little bit harder than that if he wanted to make his money back. He tried harder alright, but ended up losing even more money, with his next post showing that his portfolio was now only worth $9,800, a 74% drop from its peak at $37K. Down $1,400 on SPY, and with a bunch of other unsavory meme coins, yeah, I'd say he is pretty cooked. But just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, he looked at how terribly his portfolio was doing and figured that the only way to save it was with Beyond. He threw just about $3,300 into 7 DTE calls. These were pretty far in the money, but the thing was Beyond already pumped and dumped. So I guess he was hoping there was going to be a round 2. This never happened though, and he updated us 3 days later to let us know that he was still holding. He'd be looking at a $1,500 loss if he held till expiration, which is probably pretty much all he has left in his portfolio at this point. Cartoonist Civil 4500 is another user who had to say goodbye to his portfolio. His first post on WallStreetBets came quite some time ago, all the way back on June 10th of 2021. His first post was nothing really too special, just a $1,000 loss on Sensonics, which is down 92% since then. He posted a bit more about other dying stocks and about Tiger Coin at the end of 2021. This was a very short-lived pump and dump, and it also looks like he bought during the dump, so definitely didn't make any profit on that. He made a few more posts throughout the years, but didn't make his biggest bet yet until September of 2025. He threw $128K into out-of-the-money open calls that expired 3 weeks later, and later that day, he was already up over $4,600. Visual Flap said, "WallStreetBets comments here are bearish, so these will print." 2.5 weeks later though, I definitely don't think they were printing. Down $8,000 for the day and 123K since open, he said that he is miserable. Cherry on top, he sold ONDS calls to buy these open calls, and if he would have just held those original contracts, his portfolio would have been worth about 300K instead of 5,500. Blake the Snake said that he should just roll these out and maybe leave unscathed. Just because he was early doesn't mean he was wrong. But I think part of being right is being on time, so I'm gonna jump the gun and say he was pretty darn wrong here. Sub 40 IQ is a user whose portfolio is on a lifeline. On June 14th of 2024, he posted a screenshot of his portfolio that was down just over 64% for the day. He had $37 in buying power, and the rest of it was tied up in 3 DTE SPY puts. Someone commented, "Holding over the weekend is dumb." But Sub 40 IQ responded with, "Why settle for a 70% loss when I can just get the full 100%? When Monday rolled along, SPY did not fall below his strike price or even go in the red for the day. His portfolio was looking like a goner, but he wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. He reloaded $8,000 into his portfolio over the next 2 weeks and was ready to get back to work. He threw $2,300 into 3 DTE AMD calls and $5,400 into 1 DTE SPY calls. He went into profit pretty quickly though, up $7,100 early in the morning. I'm putting this screenshot on my fridge for when I give it all back to the market." 4 days later, he didn't really give it all back, but he was starting to lose it, being down $1,200 on Nvidia. Honestly, the odds could end up in your favor. It's not all lost, bud. All was lost though, all of it, because he posted this screenshot 5 days later. He swapped out his Nvidia calls for Apple, SPY, and QQQ ones instead, and obviously the market was just not green that day. He said, "Stay tuned for the 0 DTE revenge trading tomorrow. We're taking this bad boy to 100%. He didn't post the next day though, and instead took a year-long break. He finally got back to us in May of 2025 and actually had some good news. He threw 12.5K into 0 DTE SPY calls and left a reasonable $33 on the sidelines. An hour into the day, he was down about $3,000, but an hour after that, he was back up at about break even. But an hour after that, he was back in the red by about $3,000. And things were gonna get a whole lot worse if SPY didn't have a major rally soon, since these calls were gonna expire in just a couple hours. But thankfully, SPY did start to rally, and he was able to sell for a $7,400 gain for the day. He also posted his all-time chart, which was looking pretty darn volatile. Hopefully this peak lasts longer than the one he had a few weeks before this. By the end of May, he somehow made his way all the way up to just under 33K, which is pretty crazy considering his portfolio only had about $1,500 in it a month before this. This is when he really started getting too ahead of himself though. He threw practically every last dollar into Nvidia, SPY, QQQ, AMD, Tesla, and Apple options, and over the course of a few days, his portfolio went from an all-time high to an all-time low. No crying in the casino, he says, but with just under $200 left, Monkey Frog said, "Maybe cry a little bit." He posted his all-time chart one last time, and honestly, it's quite a sight to see. That was his last post, so I'm not sure if he's still trading options or not. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment who had the craziest trade.